What if I told you that one decision in Washington could completely change how you earn money from crypto forever? And here's the scary part. Most people didn't even see it coming. Right now, behind closed doors on Capitol Hill, something intense is happening. Crypto leaders, big exchanges, investors, they're not calmly discussing policy. They're arguing loudly. Some even say it turned into a full yelling match. Why? Because of a new piece of legislation called the Clarity Act. At first glance, it sounds like something positive. Clarity means rules, right? And rules mean stability. But when you look deeper, things start to feel very different. This bill could change how you earn from stablecoins. And if you're holding assets like USDC, USDT, or even watching XRP closely, this affects you more than you think. Let me break it down in the simplest way possible. Right now, many platforms give you passive yield. You hold your stablecoins, and you earn something like 3%, 4%, maybe even more. You don't have to do anything. It just sits there and grows. Easy money, right? Well, that might be about to disappear. The new proposal wants to ban that type of passive income. Yes, completely. No more earning just by holding. And this is where everything started to explode. Crypto companies are saying this is unworkable. They believe it could slow down adoption. They believe it favors banks. And honestly, that's where the tension is coming from. Because think about it, banks don't want people moving money into stablecoins. If millions of users can earn yield outside the banking system, that's a problem for them. So now, regulators are trying to find a middle ground. And here's where it gets interesting. Instead of passive yield, they want activity-based rewards. That means if you want to earn, you need to do something. For example, staking. You can't just hold your USDC and earn. Instead, you may have to lock it up, stake it, or actively participate in some kind of program. Now, is that the end of the world? Not exactly, but it changes everything because convenience is what brought millions of people into crypto. People love the idea of simple, passive earnings. Now imagine telling them you need to lock your funds, take extra steps, and possibly risk liquidity. That's a very different experience. And this is exactly why the industry is divided. Some are saying this is the best compromise we can get. Others are saying this kills innovation. And while all of this is happening, the market is already reacting. Circle's stock dropped hard. Coinbase also took a hit. And crypto Twitter, it went wild. People started saying lawmakers are siding with banks, that crypto is being controlled, that this is a step backward. But here's the twist. There might be a hidden opportunity inside all of this. Because even though passive yield might be banned, staking could still be allowed. And if that happens, it opens a completely new door, a door where smart investors adapt while everyone else panics. So the real question is, are you going to be part of the panic or part of the strategy? Because what's happening right now is bigger than just stablecoins. This is about control. This is about who gets to benefit from the financial system of the future. And we're only at the beginning, because in the next part, things get even more intense. We're going to talk about why banks might still fight this bill, why this law might not even pass, and the shocking timeline that could change everything before the elections. Now, here's where things start to get even more serious, because what we just talked about is only one side of the story. The bigger question is, will this bill even pass? Because if you think this is already decided, you might be completely wrong. Right now, the Clarity Act is in a very fragile position. It's not law yet. It's still moving through the system, and the process itself is complicated, slow, and honestly, full of risk. Let me explain it in the simplest way. First, the Senate has to approve it. Then, it goes back to the House. And here's the problem. The Senate has already made changes. That means the House needs to review it again. And they might not agree. They might want to tweak things. They might even reject parts of it completely. And only after both sides agree, it goes to the president. Sounds long, right? Now here's the real pressure point. Time. There are only a few months of actual working time left before elections start taking over everything. Politicians will be focused on campaigns. Votes will slow down. Priorities will shift. So if this bill doesn't move fast, it might not happen at all. And that's why what we're seeing right now feels like a rush. Meetings are happening behind closed doors. Documents are being shown, but not shared. People are allowed to read the text, but not keep copies. Why? Because once the public starts analyzing every word, problems start appearing. And honestly, we're already seeing that. Some industry groups are saying, this is too restrictive. Others are saying, this is actually a fair balance. And that divide is dangerous, because when an industry isn't united, it becomes easier for lawmakers to push whatever version they want. But here's where things get even more interesting. There's one part of the proposal that could change everything: staking. Even though passive yield might be banned, there are strong signals that staking rewards could still be allowed. And if that's true, then crypto doesn't lose. It just evolves. Think about it like this. Before you hold stablecoins, you earn automatically. After you stake stablecoins, you earn actively. It's one extra step, but the opportunity is still there. And some insiders are even calling this a quiet win for crypto. But don't celebrate too early, because there's one powerful group watching this very closely: banks. And if you understand how the financial world works, you already know what's coming next. Banks do not want competition, especially not from something like staking, which could still pull money away from traditional savings accounts. So even this compromise might not survive. There's a very real chance that banks push back harder. And if they do, this entire deal could fall apart. So now we're in a strange situation. Crypto companies are divided. Lawmakers are under time pressure. Banks are watching closely. And the final outcome is still uncertain. This is not a stable environment. This is a battlefield. And if you're an investor, you need to think differently during moments like this, because most people react emotionally. They see headlines, panic, and make bad decisions. But smart investors, they look at uncertainty as opportunity. Because when rules change, new winners are created. And this connects directly to something much bigger. Because while all this chaos is happening in Washington, something else is quietly moving forward. Something huge. Something that could completely reshape the financial system. And almost nobody is paying attention. We're talking about tokenization. We're talking about traditional markets moving on chain. While people are arguing, panicking, and debating new laws, something much bigger is quietly happening in the background. And almost no one is talking about it the right way. Let me ask you something. What if the same system that once fought crypto is now preparing to fully adopt it? Sounds crazy, right? But this is exactly what we're starting to see. In a recent interview, the SEC leadership made something very clear. This is a new era. And if you've been in crypto long enough, you know how shocking that sounds. Because not too long ago, the SEC was seen as the biggest enemy of crypto. Regulations were unclear, projects were being targeted, and investors were constantly worried about what might happen next. But now, the tone has completely changed. Instead of resistance, we're hearing support. Instead of fear, we're hearing optimism. And one statement stood out more than anything else. The sky is the limit for crypto. Think about that for a second. The top regulator in the country saying there is no ceiling for this industry. That's not just positive. That's a signal, a very powerful signal. Because when regulators shift their mindset, everything else follows. And here's where it gets even more interesting. They compared crypto to the early days of the internet. Back then, people had no idea how big the internet would become. They couldn't imagine social media, online businesses, streaming, or digital economies. And today, we can't imagine life without it. Now apply that same idea to crypto. Right now, most people still see crypto as trading, speculation, maybe payments. But what if that's just the beginning? What if we're still in the early internet phase of blockchain? Because if that's true, then the real opportunity hasn't even started yet. And this connects directly to something massive: tokenization. Let me explain this in a simple way. Tokenization means turning real-world assets into digital tokens on the blockchain. Stocks, bonds, real estate, even entire financial systems. All of it can move on chain. And guess what? It's already starting. Major institutions like stock exchanges and settlement systems are testing tokenized trading. We're talking about trillions of dollars, not millions, not billions, trillions. And this is not some future idea. This is happening now. But here's the important part. They're not rushing it. They're starting small, testing, observing, making sure everything works, because once they go all in, there's no turning back. And this is where smart investors start paying attention. Because when traditional finance meets blockchain, a completely new system is born. Faster transactions, lower costs, more transparency, and global access. And if you think about XRP for a moment, you start to see something interesting. Because XRP has always been positioned around payments, speed, and financial infrastructure. So the question becomes, what happens when the entire system starts moving in that direction? This is why some people are quietly positioning themselves right now, not because of hype, but because of long-term vision. And this is exactly what the SEC hinted at. They said this is just the beginning, that innovation will grow, that new products will emerge, that people will find more efficient ways to do old tasks. In other words, the system is evolving and crypto is not being left out. It's being integrated, and that changes everything because for years, crypto was seen as an outsider. Now, it's becoming part of the core. And if that transition continues, the next few years could look very different from what we've seen before. But here's the twist. Not everyone will win, because when a new system forms, only certain projects survive, only certain ecosystems grow, and only certain investors benefit. So the real question is, how do you know which ones will win? And this is exactly what we're going to break down in the next part, because there are clear signs, clear patterns, and clear strategies that can help you spot the winners early. And trust me, once you see it, you won't look at the market the same way again. So before we move on, think about this. If crypto really follows the path of the internet, are you early or already late? Because the answer might surprise you.